The cleat marks can still probably be found on a number of Auburn defenders' backs and shoulders and legs and all over the place at this point, following the performance of one Leonard Fournette, who has probably taken over the Heisman lead at this point. LSU whipping Auburn 45-21, looking ahead to a date at Syracuse. We bring in Billy Gomila from And the Valley Shook on the SB Nation platform for LSU. Billy, we always appreciate the time, and Leonard Fournette, little you can say about the performance against an Auburn defense, 228 yards, and he probably could have gained more than that. Wasn't needed in the fourth quarter.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the single season record was definitely in reach. Our single game record of I think it was 250 yards was definitely in reach for him. But I mean, after I think his last touchdown, and he limped a little bit. I believe they said he came down on another player's helmet or something like that and caught a little bruise on his leg. After that, it was kind of like, okay, yeah, get him out. Plus, every other running back LSU had was gaining yards too, so they didn't really need him.
Yeah, and for as dominant as Fournette was, and we've seen the highlights, if for those people that didn't see the actual game, he was really awesome. 5 and 10 and 15 yards down the field, breaking tackles and making big runs. But the offensive line push can't be discounted. It wasn't all Fournette. They were just paving the way.
No, not at all. Just about every single one of his major runs, he had at least 10, sometimes 15 yards, just completely untouched. There was one play, they ran the old power O, and the fullback's going to kick out the end man on the line of scrimmage, and there was no one even there for him to kick out. So he was kind of like stopping and looking for the next closest person, while Fournette's coming in, the guard is pulling behind him. Just awful defense by Auburn. I mean, to say nothing of the guys who were run over and the guy who tried to go high and flew over his back and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and let's understand, as I know that you do, that regardless of how marginal the Auburn defense has been in recent years, the front line is very formidable, supposed to be very formidable, very highly recruited, very productive, at least at the D tackle and defensive end position. We saw what the secondary looked like in regards to run support. Wanted nothing to do with Fournette. Okay, Brandon Harris, 17 completion or 17 pass attempts in this game against Auburn. What do we have here? 9 for 14 for 71 yards against Mississippi State. So LSU fans still probably trying to consider what a Brandon Harris performance might look like when he's truly needed late in the game.
A little bit, yes. And I can't say I'm terribly surprised that they've kind of kept him under wraps a little bit. Against Auburn, and they let him go on some early downs a little more. They kind of mixed things up really, really well, especially with using him in the running game on some design runs off of some fakes in ways that kind of made it simple for him and, kind of allowed him to be effective. And I think beginning this week, you're going to see that passing game start to grow a little bit. They haven't really done a whole lot of downfield stuff, which coming into the season, if you'd asked me to pick Brandon Harris' strength, I would have said throwing it down the field because the kid's got a really big arm. And they kind of haven't really let him uncork it yet. I think we might see that change against Syracuse.
Hey, Billy, let's dissect the defense because 2 games ago against Mississippi State, you possibly faced the best quarterback in the conference. I saw the fourth quarter when Dak Prescott was able to make some plays downfield, get Mississippi State in a position to possibly win the game. The defense dominated most of that game at Starkville, and then made a quarterback who's been lost pretty much since the second or third Louisville series, made him look bad, but still a very talented player in Jeremy Johnson. So just your assessment of the defensive effort thus far.
They're getting to the ball really, really quick. The coach is kind of keeping things simple for them. The secondary is covering, and the defensive line is doing a great job of getting up the field and rushing the passer. And it's kind of all from the inside out with the defensive tackles, and then middle linebacker Kendall Beckwith, and then safeties Jamal Adams and Ricky Jefferson, doing a great job. Auburn was really trying to run wide a lot, and LSU's safeties and corners were doing a great job of coming through blocks and just snuffing those plays out right at the line. LSU didn't have a ton of tackles for loss, but they had a ton of tackles for 1-yard gains.
Yeah, 5 sacks in the game as well. That's 8 for the season against two SEC opponents. They had 11 last year, as you well know. So the numbers are pretty staggering based on the competition on the field. Mississippi State and taking on Auburn. They have yet to play some of the lesser opponents out of conference. So one of those comes this week with Syracuse coming in with 3 wins under their belt. The Orange had a pretty good defense ranked nationally last year. They lost a ton of those guys. They lost their starting quarterback as well in Terrell Hunt. So what can you tell us about the Orange?
They're actually down to quarterback either number 3 or number 4, Eric Dungy, who would come in for Hunt, with very, very kind of down to a third or fourth string. If he's coming into the season, hopes for them, I would have probably said they were down at the bottom of LSU's, so including below even guys like Kentucky and maybe even lower than McNeese State, who LSU get a chance to play. But Syracuse did a job to date. They've beaten the teams that are in front of them and kind of put themselves in position to maybe something this year. It's not bad, but just a different kind of physical matchup. I don't think they're going to be able to hold up for very long.
Hey, Billy, any background on why this game was scheduled? I just mean in regards to Syracuse. So for LSU, it's been Virginia Tech, it's been Washington, it's been Wisconsin last season, some really marquee matchups. Was there just nobody else to find as far as you know?
Well, I believe it was made a couple of years ago with back when Doug Marrone was at Syracuse, and he was getting them in the bowl games pretty consistently. And I know LSU's had some successes recruiting up in that area, so I know, playing in the Northeast has its charm. There's a lot of LSU fans making the trip. I'd been hoping to before, just didn't kind of work out for us. But, people aren't excited, I think, because of the quality of the team that Syracuse is. And it's not so much, obviously, there's history with that program. And there's a lot of things, and there's definitely some novelty to Leonard Fournette going up there to the home of Jim Brown and Ernie Davis, and all the Floyd Little, all these great tailbacks that have come through there, and having a chance kind of to shine on that stage in front of a New York audience. But yeah, no, it's definitely kind of a matchup LSU really kind of expects to win, and at this point, the only thing challenging about it is kind of just the road trip of taking a football team that far and playing at 11 o'clock in the morning in Central Time. So,
Billy, I think you've educated a number of people that are watching when you throw out names like Ernie Davis and so forth of the Syracuse past. Jim Brown's one thing. If you watch any football, you probably know who Jim Brown is. But, Syracuse is a proud tradition that has waned here in the last 10 to 15 years past Donovan McNabb. But, yes, proud tradition going back into the 40s and 50s. So we got Syracuse, we got LSU. Fortunately, as you know, Billy, you don't need to schedule if you're LSU outside the conference to prove anything. The SEC West is tough enough, and the crossover games, I believe South Carolina and Florida this year. So there's plenty to deal with right in the SEC. So any more thoughts about how good this football team could possibly be? Again, and to note the defensive effort, if you didn't see the game, 21 points meant nothing because they were trading scores in the second half that meant nothing. It was a dominant defensive performance in this game.
At one point, yeah. These next couple of weeks are going to kind of be LSU's chance to kind of, I guess, hone themselves for the final stretch. The LSU's final 4 games will be at Alabama, Arkansas at home, though Arkansas doesn't look quite as good as we thought they would be. Ole Miss on the road, and then Texas A&M at home. That's the stretch that determines the season. But at the same time, they've still got Florida and South Carolina are SEC teams. South Carolina's on the road. This is kind of the chance for LSU to kind of find their level, and are they really this good? Can they do what good teams would do against this slate and go out and dominate it?
Yeah, that final 5 or 6 weeks pretty rugged in the SEC West for pretty much everybody. So it's brutal across the board. Billy Gomila joins us from And the Valley Shook to break down LSU taking on Syracuse at the Carrier Dome, 11 o'clock Central Time. So hopefully some folks are up to catch that one after a big Friday night. Billy, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.